Hey guys, let's look at the Tiger Woods lawsuit by Erica Herman, his ex-living girlfriend. Just discussed this on Eric Hunley's channel, so I'm revving down a little bit from that. She's seeking $30 million bucks, more or less. What's a few bucks between ex-friends? But she suffered some setbacks in court, with the judge ruling her non-disclosure and arbitration agreement with Woods are going to stand. Wow, just another rich dude using a patriarchal system to silence an oppressed woman? Yeah, I've seen a lot of comments like that. Wow, just another gold digger trying to take someone's money? I've seen those too. It won't surprise you the media hasn't reported this story with any concern for the actual context and facts, although it's a little better now than when it started out. First, the lawsuit. You might think there was a lawsuit for money filed against Woods himself. There was not. The lawsuit is against the Jupiter Island Irrevocable Homestead Trust, which is, I think, pretty much Woods' house and what controls it. It's for a breach of the Florida Residential Landlord-Tenant Act. That's what his girlfriend is sued over. That's it. Ms. Herman basically alleges she had 5 years left on an oral tenancy agreement that she could live there, in which she agreed to provide valuable services in exchange for living in Woods' house. Are your eyes rolling yet? She says the value of her living in the house for the next 5 years is approximately $30 million. That's a nice house, but on that eye thing, how about now? Yeah, that's the source of her claim for $30 million bucks, an alleged oral agreement that she do stuff and she gets to stay there for 5 more years. And what she's doing must be pretty good if it was worth $30 million over 5 years. The trust, in its defense, notes when this case gets sideways later that when completing a civil cover sheet for the action, and that's a sheet a lot of courts require that you fill out in addition to your filing that summarizes what the filing is going to be about. A question on the sheet was, does this case involve allegations of sexual abuse? And she checked the answer no. And there are no allegations of that, no claim of that in the suit. It's a suit for the value that she says she's losing by being kicked out of the house as a tenant. So the trust files a motion to dismiss based on various legal theories, mostly taking shots at whether the allegations that this 5-year oral agreement could exist and be enforceable under the law. But it's after that's kind of boring, that we get into the spicy part of this. The trust says, hey, look, we all know this suit is really about Herman's breakup with Woods, right? The breakup is why she's not in the house. This isn't really about an agreement with the trust, some oral tenancy agreement. And guess what? She's got an arbitration agreement with Woods that says if they have a dispute with each other, it goes to arbitration privately, and this case should be sent there. Well, Herman doesn't want to do that, so she contests it and also files a separate declaratory judgment action directly against Woods. A declaratory judgment action is when you ask the court to answer some legal question that controls a dispute between the parties. It can't be hypothetical. It has to be a real dispute. Here, Herman says, look, this arbitration and non-disclosure agreement is at issue in the suit against the trust because the trust brought it up, saying this should be moved over to arbitration. And I, the ex-girlfriend, question whether it's enforceable, and I ask for a declaratory judgment that it isn't. And it seems fair to do that, to ask that. Now, she had various arguments on why the NDA and the arbitration agreement would be unenforceable. And the eye-catching reasons were that Wood harassed her and that you can't force someone under new federal laws to arbitrate sexual harassment or assault claims, and you can't bind them to pre-dispute non-disclosure agreements. So those are some recent federal laws designed to keep some of the hush-up stuff from going on. So if somebody says I was a victim of an assault or harassment of a sexual nature, you can't force them with some pre-existing agreement into arbitration. And you can't force them before that dispute arises to comply with some non-disclosure agreement that you had them sign, and then you later harass or assault them and say, well, you can't talk about it. Yeah, I get that. So the court heard this matter. First, was there an agreement? I mean, you got to have an arbitration agreement to force somebody into arbitration. Woods tendered one to the court, signed by both parties, and declarations from people affirming this and evidence that it was emailed to her and she negotiated it and signed it and all that. Herman's side said she didn't remember signing that version, but she wasn't even at the hearing to confirm this alleged potential memory loss and didn't submit any evidence to support that. And, just forgetting it is not going to invalidate the agreement. So there was really no evidence to rebut her having signed it. She signed it. So the first issue of whether there ever was an agreement, well, that was a tap in for Woods. The court then says the law does say now that a legal claim for assault, sexual assault, or harassment cannot be forced to arbitration if that claim is plausibly pled. However, here the court notes that Herman's lawsuit contained no claim for assault or harassment. Again, she hasn't sued him for this. There's no legal claim alleged. Remember, it's only a claim against the trust for violating the Tenancy Act. That's it. The court said her briefing action, papers trying to argue about this stuff, they merely refer to vague and threadbare allegations of some kind of harassment. And those aren't even part of the suit. The court notes she could have made a claim for assault harassment in the suit, or even amended her suit to contain them, and she didn't do those things. So the idea that the lawsuit is about some sexual assault or harassment is implausible. So you're headed to arbitration based on an agreement you signed for this alleged $30 million worth of house stay that you missed out on. As to the NDA, the court said, hey, the arbitrator will look at that. That's part of the arbitration agreement and things you said you'd agree to. So the court said, nah, you can't just bring this up in a brief. You know, if you have a lawsuit about being assaulted or harassed, that's when the law applies. And the court even says your own lawyer concedes that the NDA scope would be part of the arbitration if, in fact, the arbitration agreement applies. And this case touches on an issue, important things like sexual assault or harassment, with society trying to find the right balance. It has been covered up in the past. I'm not talking about this case. I'm talking about generally. Those things have been covered up. They've been minimized, sometimes trivialized. Sometimes victims have been re-victimized. Doing things to correct that, that's worthy, right? But look, people and lawyers are people too, believe it or not, they're going to use this when it's appropriate, of course, but also past perhaps when a reasonable person would say this is really the issue here, because everybody's always looking for an edge, especially in litigation. For example, here, if she had a suit for assault or harassment, she should have filed that. Without even a suit alleging that, it seems beyond a stretch to say provisions meant to protect people who file such suits should apply to her just based on vague statements that are not alleged and are really trying to keep her tenancy claim out of arbitration. Believe all women is a dumb statement for dumb people. It trivializes the whole issue. And Me Too, that's easily hijacked. If people are going to be given something special for that, then people who don't deserve it are going to glom onto it. That's the nature of people. So her case is by no means the worst of this. It's really legal arguments that lawyers are making and the media following to spin that because it's going to get them the clicks. So it's not so much necessarily her here that I'm talking about. But this kind of salacious allegation that he harassed and assaulted me to get better legal treatment or get the protection of these statutes that are really for those people. People can just read that and look at Tiger Woods as another bad guy, and they can shake their heads and be so tired without ever having to even understand what the actual lawsuit is about. A 5-year tenancy to live there. Not every interaction between the two genders that results in a dispute is a case of me too or he too. Equality, in my opinion, is evaluating each case on the merits, recognizing that men and women are capable of the full range of human behavior, good and bad. They both can abuse. They both can lie. And save the term victim for real victims. I mean, so many people are crying victim over so much these days and often over so little, it devalues the term for people who have really been abused. For the sake of the real victims, you can't let the grifters, though, cause you to not care about righting harm. But you can and should get a little more skeptical on what is put out there, especially by the media, which thrives on dividing people and stoking anger. Well, that's it. Thanks, bye.